Hey friends, welcome back to the No Wrong Turns podcast with Audrey Hickman Hunter. I am Audrey and I am your host. I am so happy that you guys are all here. If you like what you're listening to today, make sure that you subscribe wherever you're listening to this podcast on. Every other Tuesday, we have an awesome guest come on and chat about their story and their passions and how their passions have evolved and grown throughout their story. Subscribe today to the No Wrong Turns pod with Audrey Hickman Hunter on your podcast player so you guys will never miss an episode. Hey friends, happy Tuesday. How are you all doing? For me, it seems like March is speeding by at lightning speed. And in classic Chicago weather, we've had our first false start of spring, which was enough time for us to be able to sit outside last week and do some grilling and eating. And then we blinked, fast forward to this week, and 1 to 2 inches of snow just kind of plopped down outside. So we are slowly working our way towards the spring situation. Friends, if you're interested in being a part of a small group setting for listening, discussion, and action work with the main focus being on racial injustice, I would invite you to consider joining my book club. Our March and April book selection is Anti-Racist Ally, An Introduction to Activism and Action by Sophie Williams. If you're interested in joining the conversation, our next book club meeting will be on Tuesday, April 20th at 7:30 p.m. Chicago time. DM us on our social medias at NoWrongTurnsPod, or you can email us at nowrongturnspod@gmail.com for more information. Listeners, welcome to our 35th episode with Meagan Woodard. Meagan is from a close-knit family, originally from North Carolina. Growing up, she and one of her sisters really enjoyed dance classes. As Meagan grew in her passion for dance, she decided to pursue this in college and beyond. Once out of college, Meagan pivoted in growing her passions for event planning and her latest passions of yoga and meditation. You're for sure going to want to lean in and not miss hearing how Meagan shares her passions of dance, event planning, and yoga and meditation. No matter if this is your story and you can relate to her or not, I believe that there is something in this episode for you. All right, here's my conversation with Meagan. Welcome back to the No Wrong Turns podcast. Today on the podcast, we have Meagan Woodard. Hey, Meagan.
Hi, how are you? Hello from St. Bart's.
Awesome. You're on a tropical island, and I'm over here in a little cold Chicago with snow tomorrow coming. So it's literally opposites.
Complete opposite climates we're in, right?
Totally. Can you tell the listeners maybe just a little summary of who you are and any fun facts you want to share?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So my name is Meagan, and I'm 34 years old. I have a Australian Labradoodle. His name is Bruno. And I used to live in New York. I lived in New York City for 12 years. And I used to work in the hospitality industry where I ran a private event space. But with COVID hitting, of course, that changed a lot of things. And I also, too, have recently gone through a divorce. So I just decided to, make some changes. But I am originally from North Carolina, and I went to school in the Midwest in Oklahoma. And right now I am in the tropical island, as you mentioned, of St. Bart's. Kind of trying to start a new chapter in my life.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being willing to come on and share your story and about your passions with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to.
So can you tell the listeners like a little bit about how you grew up, maybe if there's any kind of highlights or big events that happened that kind of shaped who you are growing up that you want to share with us?
Yes. So as I mentioned before, I'm kind of the quintessential Southern belle, and I grew up right outside of Chapel, North Carolina, so definitely a Tar Heel fan. But I'm the oldest of 5 kids, and I grew up dancing, and that was my passion so much that I decided to pursue that in college. And that, of course, is what led me to New York City. But I grew up with a very close, tight-knit family. And all of my extended family was also too very close. So it was kind of always more the merrier. So the holidays and the summers and family reunions were always, of course, very big and a lot of fun. And my household, there's 4 girls total and 1 boy. So uh, it was always a little crazy in the house, but I love all my siblings as well as my parents very much. And they've always been very supportive and by my side through every step of my journeys in life. And I'm, super grateful and appreciative to have that. And it certainly has been, I guess, a blessing to have that in my life.
Awesome. So I heard you mention dance as one of your big passions. So what kind of dance is that, like ballet or I'm not very, I mean, like I did ballet and tap dance like for maybe like a year or two
Sure.
in, preschool or something. So what kind of
Okay.
dance are you talking about?
Sure. So I did a little bit of everything. I did ballet. I actually had a Russian ballerina teacher when I was
Oh,
growing up who was
wow.
actually very strict. I guess side story is we used to go to her little studio a few times a week. And even in the summer, she would have the heat on to warm up our
Wow.
muscles. So it was very intense, but she taught us a lot. Um, and I was very competitive with dance, and my younger sister was in it as well. But in terms of the types, like I said, it was a little bit of everything, but mainly I'd say like ballet, jazz, contemporary. I tapped, but I honestly was not the best tapper. My goal was to, be on Broadway someday or to be a rockette. So that's what I was striving for. And
Mhm.
dance was just my passion, and it taught me so much in life that carries uh, through. I feel like even today, it really taught me a lot.
So when you were ending your high school years and kind of deciding what the next steps were going to be, what were you thinking about doing as you kind of pursued your passion? What were you going to go to college for dance, or were you thinking about just like getting a job in that right away? I'm not exactly sure like what kind of options there are when
Yeah,
you're when
of
you want to
course.
pursue that.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of options. There's certainly some that will move directly to New York and just start like auditioning right away. Some will go to college, or some will move to LA, or basically just try to get a job.
Mhm.
You know, I guess as soon as like after high school. For me, it was important for me to go to college, and my parents also too supported me in that and wanted me to do that as well, to have the education. So I went to a school in Oklahoma where they actually specialized. And it was a very kind of vigorous program. It
Mm.
was constantly kind of dance, 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 dance. I mean, I know as a college student, I definitely had fun, but there was not a lot of time, um, to do much else than to dance. I mean, I was dancing probably 7, 8 hours a day. So
Wow.
it's a lot. Yeah, it was definitely a lot, but it was good because it was training me to, if I really did want to, take that as my profession, it was training me because, as they always say, the show must go on.
Mhm.
And so it really helped prepare for me to, do that because since I was wanting something I wanted to do and make a living off of it and have it
Mm.
be my profession. So it gave me that foundation in the 4 years that I was at college.
That's awesome. So then was your degree like Danceology, or what was it? I'm just
Danceology,
curious, like,
yeah, I
what would it
like
be
that.
called?
That's really funny. I like that. So my degree was I got a BFA in dance performance. And the
Okay.
school that I went to, um, they had also to a degree in dance management, which was more of kind of taking care of like the management side, kind of behind the scenes. Um, so you had those two options, but because I was determined to be on the stage and
Mhm.
perform, I did the dance performance.
Awesome. So that, and you said that was a 4-year, that's a 4-year program.
It was, yes, it
Okay.
was a 4 year, correct.
Awesome. So then after, as you were, or did you have any highlights in college besides dancing for, most all of the daylight hours? Did you have any highlights that you wanted to share?
I'd have to say, so I don't know if you've ever been to Oklahoma,
Nope.
but they do have tornadoes. I did experience a few there, which was actually kind of scary.
Yeah.
And they they have I guess a sign that goes off every Saturday where they just test it. So
Mhm.
that was, and the thing is that you can't really prepare for tornadoes like you do, let's say like a hurricane or like a winter snowstorm. They kind of just come out of the blue. So that, thankfully, of course, everything was okay. But while I was there, but it certainly is a scary thing because,
Yeah.
I would one day, be dancing in the studio or driving my car, and then all of a sudden, there was, signs of a tornado that was touching down
Wow.
nearby. So that was a little scary.
Totally.
I don't miss that. I certainly don't miss that at all. And I'd say, also too, I was a part of a story, so I had a lot of really great girlfriends there, ones that I still keep up with and keep in touch now. So I was grateful to have that too. But overall, I feel like my college experience was a really good one. But like I said before, it was very focused on the dancing a lot.
Awesome. So as you were finishing up, maybe in your junior, senior year, and you were kind of thinking about like next steps, like what you were going to do with your dancing, what were you thinking, or what was the plan? Did you have like teachers helping like guide you in this process, or what were you wanting to do with your dance and your next steps?
Sure. So my summers I spent while I was in college, I spent them in New York City, and I loved to be in New York ever since I was a little girl. I remember going to Manhattan for the first time when I was 12, and just kind of taken back by everything about New York, all
Hmm.
the magic. So I, continued to train in the summers in New York with dancing, and I went. Let's see, what did I do? Oh, I was training with the Rockettes at that time, doing their kind of intensive program
Hmm.
because I really wanted to be a Rockette after college. It was kind of my dream. I also wanted to be on Broadway, but I have to admit I'm not the best singer, so I kind of decided let me just focus on this for now. Um, but those were the preparations that I did, and as far as I feel like my teachers, there's so many different things that you can do with dance. As a profession, you can dance on cruise ships. You can, they have tours. They have Circus Soleil.
Hmm.
There are a lot of great shows in Las Vegas. Of course, you have the Broadway shows in, New York, and of course as well around the states and internationally. You have Disney. Like, there's so many opportunities. I would have to say with with dancing, and but for me, I think I was just very determined to be in New York because I loved the city from such a, like I mentioned, from such an early age. I really just wanted to be there. I feel like it was my, I was just my next destiny and my next chapter in life.
Today's podcast is presented by Podgo. Podgo is the easiest way for you to monetize your podcast, providing podcasters with a flat rate for ad space so you can always know how much you're going to get when you include an ad from Podgo. Apply today to become a member and immediately be connected with advertisers that fit your audience. That is podgo.co. That is podgo.co. And be sure to add our podcast in the How Did You Hear About Podgo section of the application. All right, back to Meagan's story. Awesome. So your plan was then to graduate and move to New York City.
Right. Correct. Yes. Absolutely. Yes.
So did you?
And that happened. That's okay. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to ask you. So then what? What happened? Like once you got there, I guess.
Yeah. Of course. That's funny. I was just about to say that. So I graduated in 2008, which was actually the recession. So moving to New York at that time was a little hard to be a starving artist, but I did try. I had a lot of friends from my college that moved to New York as well. So we were all kind of doing that and working 2 or 3 jobs.
Wow.
But after doing that for, I would say, almost a year, I decided that I wanted to kind of make a career change. And because I needed to be able to, support myself of living in New York City. So it was a hard decision, but it was something that I felt in my heart that I needed to do and I wanted to do because I knew I wanted to live in New York. So I decided to go into the hospitality industry, which I knew nothing about because as I've said before, like I really only knew dance. That's, what my passion was. And, it was pretty much my world ever since I was about 12 years old. So going into this new industry was very new to me, but it was also very exciting. And I basically just wanted to be a sponge and take it all in. And yeah, so I'm sure we'll talk more about that, but that's kind of the quick, I guess, overview of it.
So you got to New York, tried to be a starving artist dancer, and decided that wasn't going to cut it, and then transferred over to hospitality.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And I had always been into, kind of doing events. And I thought it would be, something exciting to do and get into. And I wanted to learn more about it. And I basically just kind of went for it.
Awesome. How did you kind of break into the hospitality industry? Did you apply to different like event companies, or how did that work for you?
So at the time when I was in New York City, I was working for a bar studio, and there was a client who, came every day, and she was nice enough to have coffee with me one day, and she made a suggestion of, it's a hard industry to kind of get into. And of course, I didn't have any experience, or I didn't go to school for hospitality. So her suggestion was for me to be an intern and to kind of offer my service for free, which, I was totally okay with that. But I also, again, had to keep my other jobs so that I could pay my bills. So that's pretty much how I kind of got in the door of it. And I applied to a few places, but there was one place I ended up going with, and it was an actual event space. So I ended up working for this company that was actually at a private event space. It was located kind of right on the cusp of Midtown East on the Upper East Side. And it was called 583 Park Avenue. And they host events anywhere from as low as like 200 people and upwards to like 1,000 people.
I'm just kind of curious, like what you enjoyed about the and like what because you said you kind of just chose hospitality because you wanted to stay in New York. But what made you want to stay at that job, or how long did you stay at that job for a long time?
I did. So I was actually at the job for 10 years, over 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's I really loved it. It was a family company. I could when I got my dog Bruno, he came to the office with me, and there was at one time 5 dogs in the office. So it was just a
Wow.
very family atmosphere and company. And you know, I've said probably this before, but you know, I was kind of at the epicenter of New York's like exciting and elite crowd, where I was, you know, planning events for celebrities, A-list actors, athletes, politicians. I was doing a lot of charity events as well as corporate events, but then I also did socials and fashion shows, product launches. It was, you know, there was never really a dull moment. It was very exciting. And I feel like when I first started, I was taken, you know, aback by just this whole new like world and universe that I didn't know anything about. And I really, as I mentioned, I wanted to just kind of learn everything I could and make it a career for me. And it was really kind of it wasn't like anything I ever really imagined. You know, I grew up in a small town, so they were not having lavish, you know, charity parties and big corporate events like this. So it was certainly exciting, and it was a beautiful it is a beautiful venue and space in New York. There's so much history to it. And the management company that I worked with that runs it, they restored it. It's an old church,
Oh,
but
cool.
so they restored it and put a lot of meticulously like thoughts into you know, keeping the grandeur of this space, and it's truly a gem and unique venue in New York.
That's awesome. So what I heard you say like you enjoyed the most is just like the variety of different people and different events that you got to host.
Yes.
That's awesome. Were there any other parts of the job that you really enjoyed?
You know, gosh, there were so many, to be honest. I love that it was, as I mentioned, like a family company, because, you know, I grew up in a big family, and it felt like it was my, you know, my family, my home away from home. Um, you know, there was a lot of camaraderie in the office, and you know, we all went through you know, different stages of our lives together, and we all shared that. We worked really hard when it was our busy time and busy season. So, you know, and that's something I was, you know, very grateful to have those relationships and still have them today. You know, the other part is that there wasn't really a dull moment. There was, you know, there was so much going on. I mean, I was sometimes planning 2 or 3 events a day, you know, ranging from a, you know, corporate event in the morning or breakfast or something, whether it was election year or something to do with, you know, any campaign, or also, you know, doing the big lavish charity galas or holiday parties. I did some cool fashion shows for like Oscar de la Renta and Jason Wu and Tory Burch. So, you know, there were so many moving parts, but it was so much fun and exciting, and I really loved it and enjoyed it while I was there. It became, I feel like it became my new passion in life.
Awesome. Was there anything else besides getting kind of like lost in your awesome job, or did you have like anything else that you became really passionate about during that time?
I would have to say I learned a lot about the food and beverage industry,
Mm-hmm.
as well as the catering world too, and service and all of that. So I would say that certainly became something that again I was kind of intrigued about, and having nice wines to try and great food, you can't really complain. It was almost, I would say, like a dream come true. And I would say I certainly started to be, I feel like that's when I kind of became more passionate about food and wine, is why I was there, because I was learning so much about it.
Awesome. So that job, you said you worked there for 10 years. How did that job end for you? And did you know that you were wanting to transition out of that, or what caused you to part ways with that job?
So I was there, as you mentioned, for over 10 years. And I started off as an intern, and then I, kind of worked my way up of being a sales manager, and then kind of similar to like a general manager, running the company, doing everything from operations to sales to marketing. My hands were full, but it was really, I would say when the pandemic hit, unfortunately, all industries have been hit very
Yeah.
hard, but especially the hospitality. And um, I have, recently gone through a lot of changes because my now ex-husband let me know about a year and a half ago that he wanted a divorce. And I feel like, during this time of the pandemic, I was still going through the divorce, but I'd kind of been struggling of kind of finding a new path and a new journey. And I think I just had felt that, and I left New York during the lockdown and went closer to my family to Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay.
Uh, and when I came back to New York, New York definitely didn't feel, the same. There protests going on, and it wasn't the city that everyone knows it to be. So that was, of course, very hard. But I had decided that if I was going to make a change, that this was the time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to really commit to myself, and to try something new, and try something that's going to kind of scare me, have a new adventure, and kind of start a new chapter in my life, because I was just having a hard time doing that while I was going through my divorce. And I feel like I needed a fresh start and change. But it was certainly a hard decision to make, because it you know my job that I was at, and the people I worked with, they were certainly my family, and they still are. I still speak to them often, and it's hard to leave a place that you called home, and that you spent so much time with for so many years. So it wasn't an easy decision, but I knew in my heart that it was the right thing to do, and the next step for me to take.
Wow, I'm sure that was a challenging decision to make. Hey, listeners. Some of you may have heard that a big part of my story on how and why I started this podcast is that during my day job, I get to listen to podcasts all day long. The ones I really enjoy are ones that encompass someone's story and their passions. Since I'm an avid podcast listener, I wanted to start sharing podcasts and podcast episodes that I've enjoyed and that I think you may as well. This week, I wanted to share with you a podcast called Small Things Often. In 5 minutes or less, Small Things Often podcast provides simple, proven, and quick tips to help you deepen and enhance your relationships. They tackle topics from how to cope with overwhelm during stressful times to walking through relaxation exercises. I will link this podcast in the show notes. I guess you could have made a lot of decisions of where to leave to.
Mm-hmm.
How did you decide where to go / what to do next?
So let's see, it was the summer of 2019 when the divorce had started, and my ex-husband and we used to have a home together in the Hamptons, and there were a lot of changes going on. So I decided to kind of escape all of that, and I took a solo trip, which was my first solo trip actually, and I went to Greece, and I had really the time of my life where I had a chance. One, I had fun. I went skiing in the sea there. I tasted all of the fresh foods. Really healed in the ocean, and really also to just kind of escaped my life. So I really wanted to go back there this past summer, but given everything that, of course, has happened, I wasn't able to. So I just knew I needed to be, in a place that was going to be warm, kind of tropical or island, and a place that wasn't like too far from, my family, and a place that was going to be safe as well. So I chose the island of St. Bart's to visit and to kind of relax and recharge, so that I could, navigate my next direction in my life.
Awesome. Have you been there? Had you been there before?
Actually, I had not visited St. Bart's before. I have a lot of friends and family that have been here, and of course have said amazing things about it. But I had not been here before. I've been to a lot of Caribbean islands and the Bahamas and such before, but not this magical place.
So I've never been to St. Bart's. So can you tell me and the listeners some of the highlights of the island?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. So it's a French island. A lot of people say that it's like a little part of France that's been dropped in the Caribbean, and it's actually so true, because I don't know if you've ever been to France before, but they import all of pretty much everything from France here.
Oh, wow.
A lot of people do speak French, but everyone also too speaks English. I'm actually trying to learn French here, which is a little hard to do, but I'm getting there. So, but it's just such a beautiful island. It's very clean. It's very safe. The people that live here, the locals, and as well as everyone that works here, are just super nice, super friendly. The beaches are beautiful. There's a lot of nice, beautiful hikes to do, and really there's an activity for every traveler there is, depending if you want to, come and relax, or if you're a traveler that wants to explore and go hiking. They really offer a lot of different options and variety for anyone that wants to visit. The food is absolutely amazing here. I have so many great restaurants that I love to go to here. And of course, again, me being a foodie, I love that. But there's just, I could honestly, I feel like I could go on and on about how great this place is. There's so many great qualities about this island that hopefully you'll put it on your place to visit one day soon. someday soon.
Yeah, when the traveling is a little more easy, definitely.
Exactly. Absolutely.
So I wanted to ask you, so you said you went to Greece last year, you're in St. Bart's now. So
Mhm.
is traveling going to be like part of your future plans? Like, are you
Mhm.
looking to turn this like into kind of like a job for you, or just kind of a fun leisure part of your life?
So I would have to say I'm actually in the works of doing a few things right now. But travel is one of those things that I do want to do, but I would have to say I'm waiting until things get a little bit better. So that's why I'm planning to stay in St. Bart's right now.
Hmm.
But I'm hoping, maybe in the spring or summer of 2021 that the situation of everything that's going on is better, and borders around the world open. Of course, that's fingers crossed. So I'm working on a few different things. So I'm sorry I can't like talk about them all right now, but travel is definitely one of them. I have some projects, but I think certainly stay tuned because I do have some exciting projects that are in the work that I will, of course, absolutely be happy to share when I guess the word's released on that.
Okay, that sounds good. I was just kind of curious because I know that you have like a website and I had checked into that. So I was thinking, oh, maybe this is kind of going to be kind of like a travel blog or that kind of thing, from the looks of it.
Yeah, so I did actually, you're right, I did actually start a blog recently, and which I'm kind of very new to, but I'm also new to a lot of things in my life right now. So I would say, you know, my blog is certainly going to be about travel, but it's also too going to be about chapters of my life, and then also kind of my passions. So I have a lot of passion right now that I'm very into is meditation, yoga, and kind of mindfulness and being present. And that is something that really helped me when I was going through a very hard time with my divorce. And so it's very important for me to continue those practices. And, hopefully my hope is to inspire others, through that as well.
That's great. I think on your blog I was reading about just your passions for and the things that you talked about too for your big passions being travel, yoga,
Yeah,
and just like being kind of content slash being able to enjoy the moment that you're in. Would you say
exactly.
that's right?
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely. Yeah,
perfect.
correct. Uh-huh. 100%. Correct. Yes.
I didn't want to put any, words in your mouth or
Oh, no, no, no. You hit it right on the target. That's actually absolutely right.
so I'm just kind of curious if there's some people listening who are kind of hearing about your story and your journey. What kind of I don't know, resources or advice would you give them in terms of I kind of like just that kind of like healing aspect that like yoga and like those kind of things can usually kind of like evoke in you. So do you have any
Right.
resources or things that have helped you along your journey?
Yeah, so I mean, I would say, my big things, honestly, like my goal for this year, I had a goal of being present and living in the present moment. Of course, everyone is different. Everyone has different, lives and goals and so forth. But that was my goal for this year, and I would have to say, certainly yoga. I come from, I feel like a very active background, but it actually was very challenging for me to do at first because my mind was, constantly, um, wondering. So for me, it was challenging to kind of calm my thoughts in my head. And the same for meditation, but by doing yoga and doing the meditation, that those are things that certainly I feel like help me. I mean, I also too, I love Reiki and the sound baths as well too. So if those are chances or opportunities that are around you, and you're open to exploring that, I certainly will. I would certainly advise it. But those things helped me kind of go back to like my roots and go back to myself, and help me to really self-love and self-care through the hard times that I went through.
Well, thank you so much for kind of elaborating and sharing more about those with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us each week to listen to our awesome guests as they come on and they chat about their passions and their stories. I am so honored that you would choose to download these conversations every week and invite me into your headphones, your earbuds, your car, your Google Homes, your Alexas, wherever you listen. Thank you so much, friend. I am so grateful for you. And I was also wondering, friend, if you could help me out. If you have not already subscribed to the podcast, would you do that in whichever podcast player app that you're listening to us today on? If you're already subscribed, thank you so much. It makes a huge difference. And I would love it if you could possibly take the next step and share the show with a friend. I find out about so many shows through recommendations from friends, and maybe some of you have found out about this show through a friend sharing the show with you. Lastly, would you please leave a rating or review on whichever podcast player app you're listening to us on? Thank you so much. I know these are 3 kind of small things: subscribing, sharing the show, leaving a rating or review, but they do make a huge difference in new listeners being able to find the No Wrong Turns pod. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here, for listening, for cheering us on. Thank you so much. All right, before I let you go, I wanted to ask you one final question that we ask everyone on the podcast.
Okay.
And that is, what's fueling your passions? That could be anything from a new coffee drink, or maybe a new hike or a new beach that you found over on your island, or maybe a new TV show on Netflix. So what's fueling you today? What's fueling your passions?
Oh, wow. I feel like it's so hard to, I think, pinpoint one thing. But I would say, being on this French island and trying to learn the French language, that's, certainly one thing that's doing that. But I would say, also just continuing to live each, day as it comes, and to be grateful. There's so many things to be grateful for. One, for instance, is certainly my health these days, as well as a lot of people. So I would say, being able to wake up every morning and be active and physical, and living in the present moment is certainly something I'm passionate about, but also to learning French right now too.
Awesome. Before we go, I just wanted to ask you. I know I think you talked about it, but can you just tell the listeners where they can find you, or where you want to be found on the interwebs, the social medias?
Yeah, absolutely. So my Instagram is city, the number 2, C, and then underscore bell. And then my blog is just city to see bell. There's no underscore. But, maybe, Audrey, you could, I guess, connect the link to it.
Oh, yeah. I'll
or
include
put
that
it
in the
there.
show notes for sure.
Awesome. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, that's great. That's perfect.
Well, thank you so much, Meagan, for sharing story and your passions with us today.
Oh, absolutely. It's my pleasure. And thank you so much for having me. It was just amazing to speak and to share my story with you today. So thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Friends, I have enjoyed hearing Meagan's story of growing and evolving in her passions. Specifically, I enjoyed hearing about how Meagan pivoted her career from pursuing dance to event planning, how she took some advice from her client in taking a learning posture in her new career space and becoming an intern. I can see a theme from Meagan and several of our other guests in putting in the work through an internship or a basic kind of starting position to be able to learn and grow in their desired field. I hope that we are all encouraged today from Meagan's story and her passions. My prayer is that you would consider what God has for you and what He might be leading you to. See the show notes for our music credits. Alright guys, enjoy your week. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend, and I will see you back here the Tuesday after next. Hey friends, you have just listened to the No Wrong Turns pod with Audrey Hickman Hunter. I'm Audrey and I'm your host, and I am so happy that you're here. If you liked what you listened to today, make sure that you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We are bringing new shows every other Tuesday, and we have some awesome guests to come on and chat about their story and their passions and how their passions have evolved and grown throughout their story. Subscribe today to the No Wrong Turns pod with Audrey Hickman Hunter on your podcast player so you guys will never miss an episode. Thanks. See you next time.